to start off with, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us about your title and some of the scope of work, what you were up to when you were at Teraflow.
At Teraflow, I was the solutions architect. I'm Alan Brickett. I have a middle name. When I worked at Teraflow, I was a solutions architect. My responsibilities included creating the design and the architecture of how things were going to work in various places. So amongst the different clients, what was everything from the computer and servers all the way up to how something would generally look and behave. The actual user interfacing was done by someone else. The actual development, the actual databases and everything else would all fit into this way the solution would work. And I was intrinsic to the Sprint Zero concept. So in the Sprint Zero, you learn as much as possible, and then you figure out what it is that the client really wants. And you create this design that everyone starts working towards as the plan, or, you build a house, architecture. That architecture is the thing you're building towards. So your piping, your plumbing, your electricity, everything else, your walls, your floors, etc. Except in this case, it's software code and user interfaces and databases and tables and all sorts of things. That was the biggest part of my work. I did a lot of things with the PMs, the project managers, and so on to help actually achieve the things that were originally planned in the following sprints. Another part of my role, although not entirely inherent in the title, was that while I was at Teraflow, I helped to develop the sprint methodologies, the way that Teraflow works, and the kinds of ways that Teraflow would try and engage with and implement on various kinds of projects. And I brought a lot of knowledge of databases and database technology, scripting, that kind of stuff, just as an added part to the whole lot.
Okay, fantastic. That's really interesting for me to hear in terms of Sprint Zero, because obviously that's something that you were a part of the creation of, and it's still being used today. So that's pretty cool. That's a nice sort of feather in the legacy cap, right?
Look, it was there before. I mean, while I was interviewing, they were talking about wanting to have Sprint Zero and what it would have. So I helped to fill it out.
Okay, awesome. Very cool. All right, and in your opinion, what would you say made your Teraflow experience unique compared to other companies?
The way Teraflow treats their employees rather than resources, right?
Team members.
Team members, but I mean people. They treat people as people with their own goals, their own direction, their own aspirations. So how do you get the best potential out of people? How do you find your A players and then also cultivate your A players to reach everything they possibly can? Also the things they want to actually achieve. Don't get someone who's a developer and make them do UI, make them do databases, make them do things just because they're smart. It doesn't mean that they actually want to do these things. Things like the personal branding, the understanding of what the Teraflow culture is exhibited by through its people is quite something. And then distinctly different as well is the way Teraflow engages with potential customers. So the way Teraflow wants to work and the way Teraflow wants to hold on to their culture was more important than just making customers and getting paid, which puts people first. So Teraflow says they put people first, and they really do. They live and breathe that philosophy. And that was a huge difference for me. I came from a lot of other environments and a lot of other industries and so on, where people are resources, firstly. But secondly, while they claim to have a culture of being people-centric and people-first, they don't really live up to it. It becomes very difficult for them. And a lot of corporates, it's hard for them to do that very well. But I mean, where I am now, it's a breath of fresh air because it's very much they're living that kind of culture. And when I was at Teraflow, it was a breath of fresh air because, to a fairly extreme way, they're quite dogged about putting people first.
Absolutely, I've definitely experienced that myself as well. It's almost unnerving when you come from such a different environment. I found myself sort of like, really, like really, but it's definitely happening for real. Okay, so one of the promises that Teraflow makes its team members or employees is that Teraflow will double their market value, whatever that value means to them. Do you feel that Teraflow delivered on that for you?
I wasn't really there long enough for that to happen.
How long
I
were
mean,
you?
I was at 6 months.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I was a Teraflow.
for 2 years.
I
So
was a, yeah, I was a Teraflow for 6 months. I was going to start on the branding journey and all that kind of thing, but I left before it could really start with Simone. The other part of it is, I mean, making a claim to double my value. The reason they hired me is because, well, I know you and Pia joke about it, but I was one of the oldest people there because I was bringing a lot of experience to the whole thing, and I was part of the process of doubling people's value rather than being one of the people to have their value doubled,
I hear you.
which in a lot of ways would have been quite nice. But I mean, I was headhunted because I have a lot of value. Actually, just before this, I was talking to Pia because we were having a catch-up session on me as a customer and all of that. She's the account manager, and we were talking about personal brand as well. And I mean, my personal brand is one of getting things done. So I'm an executor. That's what I do. I finish things.
Gotcha.
You want strategy, you want things, you want to design, you want to plan. Yes, all of that should happen. But you want someone who can get things finished. Then that's the kind of brand I try to portray.
Oh.
And I've been quite successful at it, which is one of the reasons why I got headhunted. But a lot to do with Teraflow's philosophy of improving the value of individuals through training, certification, growth, personal brand, how to, as a person, do something with your career, how to realize your full potential, is evident in everything that Teraflow does. And it was evident in my experience as well, in that there was certainly a lot of attempts and work put into making me more prominent and getting my profile out there in a lot of ways. It was a different experience than most everyone else will have, because doubling someone's value when they're starting out or doubling someone's value when they start their career and everything is not easier, but it is more relevant to them than it was to me.
Sure.
But the fact that Teraflow does it is a very important thing to know.
Yes.
Anyone wanting to get into these sorts of industries and wanting to get into this way of working will find that it's very easy to get locked into a corporate where your own growth is assisted, but that's about it. To get into a company which is trying to grow from a small business to a big business, to get into consultancy of any kind, there's a lot of the things where they support growth in their employees and they put things in to allow growth of their employees. But not a lot really happens unless you take it upon yourself. At Teraflow, it's a case of there is a deliberate effort to grow you as a person, a deliberate effort to raise your profile and to get your potential. And there's time given into that. You find in other places, you take it out of your own time to improve. We give you the facilities and the Udemy licenses and all sorts of other things. Here you go. But you do it in your own time. When you need to study, we'll give you some time to study. You get study leave, that kind of thing. But Teraflow makes a deliberate effort to include all of these things as part and parcel of your career growth, not only within Teraflow, but overall. So whether you stay at Teraflow or not, you will have become a higher profile person. Therefore, your value to other companies, to yourself, and to your overall profile will have improved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that is quite special, isn't it? The doing certifications and upskilling yourself on company time is quite something and quite unique.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I make sure there's a fair amount of light here, otherwise I see I darken into a Godfather mode here.
Speaking from the wings. Okay, well, the last question that I'm going to ask is, what have you gone to do next? What are you up to now?
Well, I mean, I was headhunted quite particularly, but so I'm the equivalent of a chief data and analytics officer. So I work for one of the most prominent banks. I work for FNB now, but I work for one of the most prominent banks in the country within First Rand Group. So not just FNB, but all of their different brands. And it's within group finance. We need to do a whole bunch of IT transformation on a platform-based business. So a technology-led business model, which is something that's reasonably new to this area of First Rand Group. And one of the reasons why they wanted me is, yes, because I'm a closer, but also because of the kind of knowledge and everything that I have, as well as financial knowledge that I have, to be able to implement new ways of work as well as new systems, new IT. But it's PPT, people, process, and technology. bringing that change to people, that change to process, and that change to technology that aligns with the business strategy, but in a way that also allows me to be a partner with business, not just be an IT, another IT person to talk to and give projects to. So it's about making some real fundamental change, but with all the support and enablement that that needs as well. And that's what I moved on to. But I guess a real part of the question is, what did Teraflow help to contribute to that success? And I mean, in large part, where I was before Teraflow it was internal development. Then at Teraflow it was architecture and such. But in terms of understanding how to better communicate with people, how to better be relatable to people as people, not just employees and that sort of thing, and to be able to see that that kind of world actually does exist, and take that kind of culture, that kind of desire for that sort of culture, and the kind of, not just productivity, but the kind of attitudes and outlook and initiatives that people take. Initiatives, innovations, their own initiative, and innovative thinking, resourcefulness, that kind of A-player mentality is something that I took with me from Teraflow and have been trying to apply where I currently have a variety of teams working on a variety of things. And I try to get them to understand what an A-player mentality is, how we would look for filling vacancies, hiring people in that process, what it is to find an A-player. And A-players are a lot more useful in terms of their ability to learn, their ability to be resourceful and innovative and take initiative, no matter the technology that they may already know, because technology changes, things change all the time. And the ability of someone to be adaptable and flexible and to be able to still promote themselves through that entire process is a key skill for success. Team players too, I mean, don't get me wrong, team players as well, but it's a key skill for success. You can get a lot of people who are good at something, and if they don't let that go, it becomes harder to get them to be good at a lot of other things. So versatile people, A-player people, are a very important thing that I learned from Teraflow. Hell, my interview process at Teraflow taught me a lot.
Same. That's how they got me, actually, was through the interview process. I wasn't really looking around. They headhunted me, and it was as a recruiter. It's a fascinating way of doing the recruitment process, and having gone through it myself, I thought I have to be doing this. I have to be interviewing people this way. And the value of it is that you do determine who the A players are and act almost as Michael's words, but as a gatekeeper, to ensure that that's the caliber of person that we're bringing into the company for everyone's sake. So truly fascinating process. It's interesting for me to hear what you had to say there about A players and your interpretation of it. Mine, I agree completely, but there's another element to it, and I wonder if you agree with this, that we weight soft skills and competencies even more highly than technical skills, because the idea is that smart people can learn anything, right? Like the technology experience there's foundation. Communication, problem solving, the ability to collaborate well, as you said, team members, that's a really big part of being an A player. It's this balance of EQ and IQ. You can have the most technically brilliant person in the world, but if they can't communicate themselves and get along and collaborate with the team, they're only going to get so far. Would you agree with that?
So I agree with it. There's a caveat that I have. When building teams, so when building squads, for example, the squad makeup typically has a lead and various people who are workers. So I have, depending on the kind of role that I need someone to perform in a squad, I don't have as high a requirement for certain soft skills to be present initially. But I do promote the growth of soft skills, yes. I hire a range of people. Not to colloquially use the whole thing, but I mean from juniors to seniors, people with certain levels of experience and so on. So when I get someone who doesn't have a lot of soft skills, but they still have the A-player mentality, I'm very inclined to hire them because the soft skills can be improved, and depending on what you want to do. I do a lot of work with a lot of technical people. Technical people, typically, they end up specializing, or they go into design of some kind, architecture, design, whichever. Or they then look at being a capability lead, so they work across a wide band of people and raise all of those people to their level. Then they need certain soft skills. They become a technical lead, so they lead squads, in which case they need similar but also different soft skills. But a specialist and a designer, they need different kinds of soft skills, and a specialist needs less soft skills. When you can find A players who are fairly introverted. Getting them to not be introverted is not the point. Getting them to play to their strengths is the point. Certain soft skills are important, but they're not going to make or break my process. You can realize your full potential in a lot of different ways, especially as a technical person, without developing a high degree of soft skills across the board. You should develop certain soft skills, that's a given. But I don't look for a large amount of it, even in my seniors, depending on the role they need to perform. So if you need to be interactive, then I'm looking for it, or I'm looking for your ability to learn. Soft skills and technical skills.
And that makes perfect sense, especially in a larger organization. And I think that I don't know if the Diamond Matrix had been implemented at all when you were with Teraflow.
No.
So it's, to give you a visual sense of it, you start at like 1A, and you can move in 3 different directions. If you want to be more of a leader, more of a tech lead, if you want to be more of a master builder, for example, like a craftsperson, excuse me, you go in a different direction. And then there's the middle ground, which is both. If you want to be working on the soft and hard skills. And so we aim for that middle ground. We would like to ideally have a team that can, team of members who are at that sort of middle ground and interested and capable in both areas. But yeah, there are different pathways for progression and doubling your market value. So yeah, very cool. All right, well, that's it from me. Anything else that you wanted to say that you're hoping I would ask you?
No, I'm pretty good.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you as well.
You too. Don't know if we'll actually meet again, but
Okay, well, all the best on your journey.
thank you very much, and you as well.
Thanks, Alan. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.